Welcome back. It is always a good day when I step out in my studio in Southern California, and I know that it's a day that I record my show and introduce you to another fascinating guest who has quite a story, massive story about loss and grief. But so many really intriguing things came out of Catherine's story, and she's going to share everything with you and the work that she's doing today to help other people. So I'll introduce my guest, Catherine Gourdier, in just a little bit. But first, let me do a little housekeeping. So cool when I get a review on the podcast. And to be honest with you, I wasn't sure where to really find those. And I was just messing around on Apple Podcast and I saw I had a review. So I go and I look. Oh my goodness. It is my listener, one of my listeners in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, which has been a big market for the Next Room. And all I know her by is Kimmer Zimmer. So Kimmer, thank you so much for the 5-star review. Please come join us on the Facebook page. Thank you for reading the book. I'm just thrilled that you're here, and I hear good things about Travelers Rest. Okay, here's some other of my top markets. I just was digging into the cities. Herndon, Virginia, thank you for being here. Palm Desert, California. I think my mother-in-law is spreading the word because that's where Frances lives. And all of a sudden, I have a huge listenership in Palm Desert. So, Frances, I love you. Thank you so much. Jefferson City, Missouri, Melbourne, Australia, huge market in Melbourne. I am going to make it down to Australia to do a book talk. So let's get cracking on that. Austin, Texas is a good market. Coquitlam, British Columbia. Thank you so much. Stony Plain, Alberta, Canada, and Pensacola, Florida. Those are my top 8. Coming up after Catherine's show will be Jan Warner from Grief Speaks Out and Grief Day by Day. Jan is a dear friend of mine, and she's going to tell you about her story of loss with her husband, Artie, and what drew her to starting a Facebook page just to park her grief. And now it has 2.5 million people who follow her on Grief Speaks Out. And she's just a lovely woman. So Jan will be the show after this one. So my guest today is Catherine Gourdier. Catherine wrote this beautiful memoir. It's called Breathe, Cry, Breathe. I'm going to hold it up for the YouTube folks. I just finished it. Wow, what a story. Literally had to put the book down a few times because it stirred up so much within me. Grief is one of those things that we end up kind of living with, and we learn coping mechanisms, but it doesn't go away. You don't get over losing someone in your life. It just stays with you. You learn how to live with it like a comfortable old sweater. So Catherine's story, Breathe, Cry, Breathe, is going to knock your socks off. So here's the book. I'll put a link to the Amazon so that you can go purchase it after you hear her story. Catherine, welcome to the Next Room.
Thank you, Jane. I'm so glad that I met you by listening to a couple of other podcasts. And now
That's
here
so
I
cool.
am. Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how. I can never remember because people are coming in through the podcast or from reading the book or for finding me through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. So I always forget how we connected. But I remember getting an email from you, and you had sent me a beautiful email and said you had, written this book. And I said, great, send me a digital copy. And you said, no, I prefer to send the hard copy, which I love because I'm old school. I like to hold it. I like to flip through it. I like to highlight it. So Catherine, I know this is going to be painful, but please share what happened to your beautiful little mommy and your baby sister, Julie, with our listeners.
Okay. First, I would like to say that I am the eldest of 8. And if you can imagine having 8 siblings, it's hard to get everybody together in one night. But this night was a surprise, horror-themed, actually, birthday party for my youngest sister, Julie, who loves horror films. So we were all dressed, most of us were dressing as zombies. when we received a phone call that our mother had been hit by a car. The phone rang again instantly, and my sister-in-law said, she was thrown, Kath. And as soon as I heard that she was thrown, I knew it was a very serious accident. So my husband and I, in full zombie attire, dashed out of the party and drove to the accident site, where we learned, unfortunately, that my sister had also been struck. They were walking home from church, actually, and they were struck a few feet from the end of our own driveway. My mother died at the scene, and my sister was so severely brain damaged, we had to let her go the next day. And 7 weeks after the funeral, my father died by a broken heart, we know, sitting in my mother's reading chair with his head on his chest like he was sleeping.
Mm.
So that,
Yeah. Okay. So it's affecting me now. So now you know why I had to read this in increments. But I was so compelled to continue to pick it up because it is so beautifully written, and it's Catherine's truth. And it's a story that's going to affect everyone, because all of us have elderly in our lives that possibly shouldn't be driving at this time. And so this is a cautionary tale as well. So, Catherine,
well, it's cautionary. What Jane is referring to is the woman that hit my parents was 85 years old.
right.
And yes,
And she just didn't see them. She
Well,
literally did not see them. She thought some kids, I'm sorry?
Yes, she couldn't see 3 people
Right.
in the street. Yes.
Right. Wow. So there's an important story here about the elderly driving when perhaps they should not. And I do understand she was just getting ready to relinquish her license prior to this tragic accident.
Yes, she was going to be turning 85 in 7 weeks, and her children had already spoken to her about putting away her keys, and she said, "No, I'll stop driving when I'm 85."
Wow. So let's talk about, where do you go from here? You've just lost two of the most pivotal people in your life. You were very, very close to your baby sister. I'm the baby of 6. And so I have the luxury of having 4 big sisters. And, I can't imagine what kind of pain it would put them through. It's always difficult to lose a sibling, but your youngest sister, and she was just the joy and light of everybody's life, from what I understand.
She sure was. And I don't have my own children, and her being 13 years younger than me, there was very much a maternal relationship as well as a sister
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah. So let's talk about what came through all of this. I mean, there's a couple different angles that happened with this book, and what brought you to write it. And you just couldn't let it go.
Well, so because it was such a tremendous, devastating tragedy, and my family is very close. And if you can imagine all being excited, we're all in Kingston, Ontario for all together, which never happens, and all happy. And this happens. It's the worst thing that could happen, period. Then the weeks and months following, however, my sisters and brothers were so buried into their grief, they didn't want to talk about it, and I did. Everybody grieves differently.
Yeah.
And for me, I wanted to talk about it, and one of my sisters said, "You have to talk about them all the time," and I'm like, "Well, yes, I do." and they were busy with their own families. And my husband, as a film producer, was working 14 hours a day. And so I was alone a lot. So how I was releasing some of the pain, since my siblings didn't want to talk about it, I started writing. And then with the writing brought some beautiful moments and memories. And that was my initial way that I was trying to heal myself. And then another friend of mine, her mother had been murdered, and she recommended this Reiki clairvoyant called Benita. And I just said, anything, I'll try anything. And that was my first experience for getting messages from the other side. And I've written about it. And for those, I'm sure, well, I don't know, but I would think most people listening to your podcast do believe in the other side, the next room.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, I would just suggest giving it a try, because I could tell you what I heard, what the messages Benita said to me, but it's only when you hear messages from your family, departed family, pertaining to you. And I recorded, or the mediums recorded. And so in my book are, truncated excerpts, exactly what they said. So it's not made up. I did see one that was a quack, for a lack of a better word. If you see a medium that says, "Is your mother gone?"
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she said to tell you she loves you. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
yes.
for that deep, abiding message.
No, the really good ones as well. They don't ask you questions.
No, exactly.
And also with every one of them, I did not give my last name. One, I even made up a name
Right.
because,
So they couldn't Google you and find out your story.
and so because I wanted to know that they didn't do that. Exactly that. How could they have known that?
Right.
Unless my family was speaking to them.
Yeah, I have found that it seems to be a gift that everyone has. We all have intuitive gifts. We all have ways to tap into a higher consciousness. I really believe that. I also believe it's sort of like a gift that the more that you use it, the more that it develops. So I know for me, it's developed tenfold because
Yes.
I choose to be around it. I believe it. I love it. I embrace it. And so it develops because I'm using it. It's like a muscle. It's no different than doing yoga every day. You're going to get stronger and those muscles are going to have more balance to them. Wow. So
So
a
once
couple,
I got one,
oh, go ahead.
if you wanted me to get on to the special O is, so with seeing the mediums, I was feeling a little better. I was feeling stronger. But I still was a shell of myself. And my longest time best friend, Karen Ray, we met in Boston because she had moved to Alaska. And she saw how skinny I was, like 5'5.5", 100 pounds.
Oh, goodness.
And she said, "Kath, why don't you do something with Special Olympics in Julie's memory?" And I did. Then I took the ball and ran with it, as she said. She said,
I love that.
and,
So let's talk about the Special Olympics and why, because it's such a fabulous organization and they do such good work on the planet. Let's talk about it for a little bit. Why the Special Olympics?
well, my youngest sister Julie was a Special Olympics athlete. She has Down syndrome, and if you've ever seen the athletes, the Special Olympic athletes play. Oh, they do. They bring so much joy and laughter. I have
Pure joy.
a quick cute story where I attended a basketball, it was a practice, but they were still playing a game. And my brother showed up a bit late, and he was creeping along the sidelines. You know how you sit on the benches on the floor in the school gym. And they're playing, and then Julie's like, "That's my brother Dave." And they stop playing the game and start to, all en masse, go to the side. "Hi, Dave. Hi, Dave."
Oh, pure joy. So you are now active in your little sister's name, Julie, and keeping her spirit and her energy alive by donating your time to this amazing organization. So what kind of events are you putting on, or is there somewhere, can you send me a link so we can include that in the information?
Well, you can, like, what some people don't know is the Special Olympics is not a tournament every 4 years.
No, it's ongoing.
Special Olympics is 12 months of the year, and each chapter has to do their own fundraising for their own events. And that was why, with my family and friends, I specified when I did the fundraisers to please make sure it's in Julie Gourdier's memory and goes to the Kingston chapter. But you could support the chapter in your own neighborhood.
Sure.
But I just did, for what I've done 3 big ones. I did one that was a huge sit-down dinner for 350 people. It was a party that I was planning before the accident, to honor the 100 films that my husband had produced. And then with the accident happening, getting pushed, it ended up being his 60th birthday. So the co-producer of this event said, "I still want to do it." And I said, "Well, I will only do it if we also celebrate Dawn's birthday and we do it for Special Olympics, do it as a charity event." And then from then on, I've done one every 2 or 3 years. I have done 7 so far, but I did 2 other 300 people events.
Wow.
But then I did a couple, it's my birthday, have a house party, in lieu of a gift, bring a donation for Special Olympics.
Perfect.
And
wow.
that's,
Good for you, Catherine. If you just tuned in, Catherine Gourdier is my guest, and her book is Breathe, Cry, Breathe. It's her journey, very personal journey through the loss of her mom, her baby sister Julie, and her dad. 7 weeks after the 2 girls, women, were struck by a car. Let's talk about your cute little mom and her fascination for Hollywood and all things famous, because I just got such a kick and totally could connect with your mom on that level, because my mother was a big People magazine reader, and she was just always read the newspaper every day and kind of like loved that. So I was smiling through all of those portions of the book.
For her 80th, which we went early, because if we'd gone on her birthday, the accident happened exactly 4 weeks before her 80th birthday. But I was in between film gigs that April. So I said, "Okay, Mom, so I want to take you on a trip somewhere. Where do you want to go?" She goes, "Anywhere I can see celebrities." So
great.
So off to Los Angeles, where I live half the year, and Hollywood we went. But yes, I share some of her moments meeting her favorite stars like Richard Gere.
Oh, that's great.
Richard Gere, and how we went to a movie premiere, and we were after the movie, it was 3,000 Miles to Graceland movie. We sat Mom at the table at the after party, and we went up to the buffet to bring her back some food. And as we're approaching the table, I'm seeing my mom like doing this. And then this man turns and starts to talk to her. And I said, "That's Kevin Costner."
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Pat and Kevin Costner on the bum to get his attention to
That
turn
is
around.
so great. And he
And
was probably just as sweet as can be.
he said apparently he had said to her, well, ma'am, I don't think this is the best movie of mine for you to see because it was
Oh,
violent. She goes, I don't care. I loved it.
oh, that's so great.
That- yes.
I love those were really sweet memories in Breathe, Cry, Breathe. Um, so what's next for you? Catherine Gourdier, what are you going to do next? I mean, I wrote down the word write, which I love because I felt that it was really cathartic for me and people that are grieving that come to me through the podcast or Facebook or whatever, they'll say, what do you recommend? And I'm like, get a pen, get a beautiful journal and write it down or just a pad of paper or, on your phone. But for me, it was one of the best therapy sessions ever, and still is to write. So what is next for you?
That- Well, besides, I'm going to make an announcement at another Special Olympics event in 2 weeks. Besides doing more work with the Special Olympics, yes, I am going to do some more writing. I might focus on another memoir type, more my teens and 20s, and also to touch on being the eldest sibling, because initially the tagline of my book was, dealing with devastating family tragedy as the eldest sibling or something like that. And I was told to take out the eldest sibling because then it would narrow my market.
Hmm.
But
I love that.
but
Yeah. I,
because the eldest siblings uh, are we are different,
yeah.
especially the siblings of many, many children.
Yeah. I'm the baby of six. So, tragically, my oldest sister, she left for the next room in 2016. And there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't talk to Lynn and ask for her very pragmatic, direct, no BS approach to life because she was, Lynn was the most, boy, I'm looking at her picture right now and she's laughing at me. She was direct. She was honest. She treated everyone the same. She didn't care if you were, cleaning toilets or if you were mayor of her town. She treated everyone the same, which is just such a wonderful attribute. So I get the big sister thing. So good for you. And I don't think it will narrow your market. I think it will kind of bring you to a more, I don't know, authentic audience, maybe. Um, I would not, you don't need to be broad in this scope of things. You are the eldest of eight. That's a beautiful approach. So I would encourage that. I'll bet that you will get a lot of success through something like that.
Thank you. And just a quick word of advice for people that are deeply grieving. It's really simple. If somebody calls you and says, do you want to go for a cup of tea, or do you want to have a cocktail, or do you want to go for a walk? Just say yes.
Mm,
Don't sit at home in your sweatpants. Just say yes.
that's beautiful. And thank you for that, because a lot of people are always, what do I do? How do I help my friend who just lost their dad, their sister, their brother, their mom? And really, it is just show up and don't avoid it. Like, I love that you just wanted to talk about your mom and your sister and then your dad, and your other siblings were a little bit more buttoned down and shut down about it, which is interesting because I can relate to that. That was me. I was the one telling the stories. I was the one writing all the time and just needed to have that with me. So I love that you did that. And how do your siblings feel now?
They are not happy with the book. Put it
Aw,
put it
really?
mildly. Yes. Yes, unfortunately. Um,
Well, I would say too bad. This because it's your truth. And why would you hide that? And you didn't paint anyone in a bad
no,
light at all. It's your
no.
story. It's, you were ripped apart. And like you said, you related to your little sister like she was your own. Like that was your parenting skills were coming out. And I feel that because Lynn was 12 years older than I am. So she was a second mother to me. I mean, I remember riding around the neighborhood. She'd hoist me up on her neck, and she was always harder on the other kids, but I was the baby. So I was spoiled rotten by my big sister. Well, you know
In
what,
my
Catherine?
mind, it's a tribute.
Yeah.
It's a tribute to my family,
Yes.
but at the same time, it's also helping others, because I've received many letters, especially in the first year that it was released, from strangers and friends alike, thanking me,
Wonderful.
writing it. But
Well, I think it's great. And perhaps your family will come around. And if
I
they
hope
don't, that's okay too. You can't, I don't know, you can't dip down and hide who you are. I have found that you need to be brave and you have to have courage in this lifetime to really be who you are and to speak your truth. So I appreciate it. Here's the book again for the YouTube fans. It's Breathe, Cry, Breathe. And it's just really heart-wrenching, but beautifully written. And Catherine Gourdier is my guest today. And I'm just so grateful that you would join me. Thank you for reaching out. And thank you for being here on The Next Room.
Thank you so much, Jane.
Thanks again for listening. I will have Jan Warner coming up. Donna Ashworth is going to join me. Jacob Cooper, Pamela Osley. I have just an enormous amount of very stimulating guests coming your way on The Next Room. Thanks again for listening. Please give me a rating if you like the show. Download, share it with your family and friends. Big shout out to my mother-in-law, Frances. God love you, Frances. You really are... she's inspirational. She calls me and wants to talk about the show. So, Catherine, I'm going to get a call from her in probably a couple weeks, and she's going to want to discuss this. As a matter of fact, now that I've finished Breathe, Cry, Breathe, I'm going to send it out to the desert with my husband. He's going to go see his mom this week. So I'll send it out for Frances. So thanks again for listening. You are tuned in to The Next Room, and I appreciate you being here. I'll talk to you again soon.